Hi everyone, Vanessa here from Love Riley. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be sewing up this amazing bag. It's a brand new designer, awesome sew pattern, and this is the gift shoulder bag. This is a modified version of the first bag that I made. I'll show you that one quickly. So this here was the first one that I made, and this will be released prior to the video that you're watching now. This was the first one, and then this is the second bag that I made. I learned a lot from making the very first bag. If you'd like to see that video, I'll link it just up here and you can go and watch that. There were some changes that I made to the first bag, and that involved a recessed zipper panel. And adding this recessed zipper panel made me love this pattern and want to buy acrylic templates for it. There is a lot of glue that's needed to assemble this bag, so it's best to do all the glue bits first, and then you can move on to other parts while you're waiting for your glue to dry. You could also use double-sided tape. Do what works for you. It is a drop-in lining. I found that it was a lot easier to do the drop-in lining with the recessed zipper panel as opposed to the way that the pattern is written with how the zipper gets placed on the bag. Isn't it adorable? I used a quilting cotton for my bow this time rather than vinyl. And I used Decaville Heavy just to give the bow tails a little bit of structure. I also sprayed the bow with Scotchgard, and the reason that I did that was because there's white in the bow and I didn't want it to be able to get dirty. So I sprayed that in the tails with Scotchgard. So let's have a look at the back of the bag. This is a great place to be able to put a nameplate. You really don't want to put it on the front because you don't want to take away from the bow, because the bow is the showstopper. You could add it to the back. I forgot to add one at all, so that's okay. In this bag, I actually use rectangle rings rather than the connectors that I used on the first bag. Rose gold hardware because I don't use it often enough. So let's have a look at the inside. The lining on this bag fit absolutely perfectly. On the back, I just did one slip pocket. I didn't bother dividing it on this one. I did on my first one, but I just left it as one big pocket on the back. On the opposite side, I didn't worry about putting anything on that. I just left that as is. You could add another zipper pocket if you wanted to. Choice is yours. There is a lot of room in this bag to be able to carry a lot of things. It is a box bottom bag. The way that you sew the lining and exterior together before you do your drop-in lining, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And what that does is it ensures that when you're using your handle on your bag, it's not pulling your lining and allowing that lining to pop up out of the bag. Again, a genius. So here's another good view of the inside of the bag, and your connectors are sewn onto your lining and into the lining seam. Again, absolutely love that detail. I will give you the dimensions that I made the recessed zipper panel. I do go over those when I make the bag, but adding the recessed zipper panel just changed everything for me in regards to the zipper on this bag. And this one I'm actually gifting to Belinda from Brimax, because when I made the first bag and I added the zipper pull onto the bag, I was so disappointed with me having a wavy zipper, and I reached out to Belinda, who's also a tester for this pattern, and said, can you talk me through, because I was clueless, how to do a recessed zipper panel, because I really want to add one to this bag. She talked me through it. She gave me the measurements that I needed, and it worked amazingly. I didn't do another one in between the very first bag. I did the very first bag and then this one, and this is the one that I make in the video, so you get to see that it comes together absolutely perfectly. And I said to Belinda, I hope you like blue, because I'm going to gift this bag to you because you were amazing and helped me fall in love with the pattern, and I absolutely love it. So please go and support this brand new designer. It's her first pattern and it really is great. If you'd like to see how I made this, then please keep watching. I'll catch you all very soon. Bye. Okay, let's start with all of our pattern pieces. For my exterior navy vinyl, I'm using a marine vinyl, and I got that from Voodoo Rabbit. And for my lining, I'm using a cotton canvas that I've interfaced with a medium woven. I've cut my shoulder strap to the length given in the pattern. I'll add a line down the center and double-sided tape when I'm getting ready to sew that. So 1 shoulder strap. I've got 2 strap connectors out of my marine vinyl. I have gone ahead and stabilized that with Decaville Light. I've just used a 1-inch piece and I've put that in the center. Decaville Light and 2 strap connectors. I've got 2 facing panels. I've not stabilized or interfaced those. So 2 of those. I've got 2 exterior panels. I've gone ahead and I've marked out the placement for my stabilizer. This does not get stabilized before we sew up the bottom here. So I've got 2 of those out of my marine vinyl. This is different. This is not included in the pattern, but I'm going to try and add a recessed zipper panel. I've got 2 of my marine vinyl and I've stabilized those with Decaville Light. I've got 2 of my lining, which is the cotton canvas, and I've interfaced that with a medium woven. This is different to what's in the pattern. In the pattern, what we do is we separate the zipper and we add the zipper directly to the top. It gets glued on and then it gets stitched when we do our drop-in lining. So the final stitching is when the zipper actually gets attached to the top of the bag. I really wasn't a fan of that, so I thought I'm going to try and do a recessed zipper. So I've got those pieces for that, and I've just cut those to 7 inches long by 2 inches wide. I'm going to be making my bow out of this cotton canvas, so I've got 2 bow tails cut out of my cotton canvas. I've interfaced these with a medium woven, so I've got 2 of those. So for my bow pieces, I've actually added Scotch guards so they're water resistant. I've only done that for my bow pieces, not my lining. This is my bow panel. This interface with a medium woven, and I've gone ahead and added Scotch guard to this. So I've got 1 bow panel. These are my 2 interior lining pieces. I've got 2 of those medium woven interfacing on both of those. And I have kept it in my seam allowance. I haven't worried about keeping it out. I've got a bow band out of my marine vinyl. I'll put a mark down the center and add double-sided tape when it comes to do that, but that's out of my marine vinyl. I've not stabilized or interfaced that at all. 1 of those. I've got 2 slip pocket panels. I'm just using a quilting cotton and I've interfaced that with a medium woven, so 2 of those. So what I'm going to do is my bow I'm doing out of the cotton canvas. Because I'm not using vinyl, I just want to make sure that it is stable. So what I did was I used my bow tail panel pattern piece and I just transferred it to my Decaville Heavy, trimmed down the seam allowance, and I'll slide this in after we've stitched it just to see how that goes on the final bow. So 1 of those. This is Decaville Heavy. This gets placed on our exterior panels when we've sewn them together. So I've just got 1 of those. I've got number 5 zipper tape and I'm just using a navy and a rose gold. I've got 2 rectangle rings. I'm going to use rectangle rings this time. I've got 1 number 5 zipper pull. This I got from Online Bag Supplies. 1 of those. I do have a metal handmade tag. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that. This is the only zipper end that I have, which are the triangles, which are also strap ends. But this is the only colour that I've got in rose gold, so I'm going to be using that. And that's it for hardware. I'm using this navy thread here from Prosew and it's number 1411. And I've got a size 21 needle ready to go. First thing you want to do is get your 2 front panels, place these right sides together, and we're going to sew the long bottom edge here with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Hi everyone, Editing Vanessa here. I needed to come back on and refilm this part of the video. This bag is different to the one that you're seeing in the video. This one I'm just making for myself. The pattern designer went ahead and changed this step and let me know so that I could update the video. So I've got right sides together. I'm going to sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now we want to open this out and we're going to top stitch both sides of this seam down. I'm just going to baste along just here, just to keep this open while I top stitch both sides. I'm just doing that 1/8 of an inch from that edge, so it's well within my seam allowance. And I'll do that on both sides. So that now is flat on the end. So what you can do is you can run double-sided tape down here just to hold these edges down. My machine does not like when I sew over double-sided tape, so I'm just going to add some masking tape right on the edge just to hold these flat while I top stitch both sides of that seam. Or you can just hold it out flat as you top stitch it down. So now what I'm going to do is top stitch 1/8 of an inch from each side of that seam. So that's it, it's top stitched now on either side of that center seam. So now that that's been done, you can go ahead and add your stabilizer. I'm going to place my Decaville Heavy between these lines here. So make sure that you go ahead and measure out all the markings that it says in the pattern, and then I'll stabilize that. Leave it to dry overnight, or leave the glue to set up overnight, and then we can do this part tomorrow. Now on the end of our strap, there's a measurement given in the pattern, and you need to go ahead and mark that on each short edge. We'll need those markings shortly. I'm just going to go ahead, do my center line, add double-sided tape, and then we can get this handle done. I'm not going to add tape on the end here yet. I'm going to need a lot of clips. We're going to fold our edges in to meet the center line. We don't need to worry about leaving a gap, but we only want to do it between those markings. So this bit here, we leave that, we do not fold that. So folding our edges over to meet that middle, and you want to start at that mark that we made. Just going to add some clips as I go to hold it. On the first bag that I made, I used the lace vinyl from Mia Zen, but this time I wanted to do blue. I said on a previous video I need to use more colours that I don't immediately grab for, and blue's one of them. Okay, that's all done. So once you've gotten to these ends here, these are going to get joined together, but first we've got to put our D-rings or rectangle rings on. So I'm just going to slip these on. I've got the seam of my rectangle ring on the seam of my strap. So you want to put that on both sides, and then we're going to join these together. Don't forget to put these on before you join your strap together. Just going to move these down out of the way while we do this next step. Now what we need to do is we need to get both of these open edges, put these right sides together, and these get sewn together with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Sewing this together is going to create one whole loop. If you are sewing on a domestic and you're worried about bulk, you can come in here and just trim down the corners here. So just cut a little triangle, and this is going to help with bulk. Then you want more double-sided tape, and we're going to fold those edges back and then create the whole loop. Fold these back. You can glue them, you can tape them. I'm just going to put double-sided tape over them just like so. Okay, I'm going to remove all of that. You're going to need some clips, and then these get folded into the center. Now, we've got a decision to make. I'm going to turn this right sides out. Now you can have your seam in the center at the back, or you can have it to one side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have mine almost to the side of the left. So there's my seam there. So what I'm going to do is move my connector all the way up to this side, because you want these at the ends of your strap. So I'm going to pull it there. So there's my connector, there's my seam. And I'm going to use clips to clip all this together because this now gets sewn. So you could add another lot of double-sided tape down the center to hold this together as you sew it, or you can just clip it like I am. So you want to make sure that your other D-ring is right up the other end. So I'm just going to pull it down as I go. You want to make sure this is as even as possible on both sides for when we top stitch. So you want to make sure that your connector is pulled all the way to the other end. Now you want to go ahead and top stitch the whole length. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mark up the top here, right next to my connector. And I just want to mark 1/2 inch. And then from that, I'm going to add 1/4 inch. And that is where I'm going to pivot. So I'm going to sew up to there and come across. And I'm going to do that on both sides so that it is even. And you want to make sure that if you are going to do this, you're using a removable pen. Up this end where my connector is, I'm making sure that my connector is pulled all the way to the end. And I'm pushing my ruler down so that I know that it's flush up against that connector. I'm marking 1/2 inch to begin with. And then from there, I'm going to mark 1/4 inch. And then that will be the same on both sides. Get rid of that first mark because otherwise I'll confuse myself. It's up to you where you decide to start and stop stitching. Because I'm using navy thread, I'm not worrying about pulling my stitches through. I'm just going to sew it as it is. And I'm sewing that 1/8 inch from that edge. Now just here is going to be bulky because that is where my seam is, just here. So now I'm on that mark, I'm going to come across and down the other side. I can get rid of that mark. What I'm also going to do is put a spare bit of vinyl behind the foot so that it doesn't tear up my vinyl or damage my hardware. What you can also do is if you're worried about stitching close to your connector, what you can do is just turn it towards you and back stitch. And you want to do that for a couple of stitches, and then you can turn your strap around and sew as normal. Our shoulder strap is now done. Next, I'm going to do my connectors. Got my 2 connectors here. A double-sided tape. We're going to do the same thing that we did with our strap. We're going to fold our long edges in to meet the middle. There's one done. Now you want to get your strap. You want your strap right sides up. We're going to add our connector here. We're going to feed our connector piece in through our connector, wrong sides up. So you're looking at the right side of your strap, but the wrong side of your connector. And we're going to fold that over. just like so. There's a measurement given in the pattern of how long this piece should fold over. There we go. And you want to go ahead and you want to secure that. So clip that together. So my strap is right sides up, facing up that way. My connector piece that I've just added is wrong sides up, so I can see the seam of my connector piece. And you want to do that on both sides. So feed it in your rectangle ring. Have this folded over as per the measurement. If I turn my handle wrong sides over, here's the seam that we created earlier. So this is the wrong side because that's where our seam is, but it's showing the right side of our connector. It feels totally wrong, but that is correct. Then what you want to do is there's another measurement given in the pattern, and you want to measure from the top of your connector down to what it says in the pattern, and you're going to make a mark. And this is where we're going to top stitch to. What I'm going to do is the same thing that I did for the connectors up here. So I'm going to get my 1/2 inch ruler, I'm going to push it flat, make a mark there, and then from that mark another 1/4 inch, and that will be my pivot point. And the reason that I don't just mark a 1/4 inch from the top here is just because it's bulky and I want it to be the exact measurements. That's why I do 1/2 inch and then measure a 1/4 from that mark. It's just easier. Now what we're going to do is we're going to leave long tails. And we are going to sew from this mark here that we made. I'm going to come up to here, across, and then back down. Do not back stitch, leave long tails. And this is so that when we sew this connector in our bag, we can match up the top stitching. So I'm not going to back stitch. Okay, I'm now at that mark. I'm going to come across. I'm going to come in and protect my hardware. You can also use a hump jumper. And I'm going to finish at that line and not back stitch. Leave long tails. I'm going to pull my threads to the back and tie them off. So I'm just doing 3 knots and I'm going to tie these off. We can repeat that for the other side. I'm just going to remove that mark. I don't use rose gold hardware a lot, and I don't know why, because it is beautiful. Leave long tails. Start there. Don't back stitch. Oh, I went to back stitch then. It's just second nature, isn't it? Okay, get rid of all these markings. We don't need those. Pull our threads to the back to tie those off. I can understand why we didn't backstitch. It would be really important not to pull your threads through to the back if you were using a contrasting thread. For me, it's not really, doesn't really matter because it's all navy and you cannot see the back stitch. But that's what's in the pattern, so that's what I'll do. And then we can sit this to the side. Next, I'm going to do the bow. Our bow band gets folded right sides together, lining up our long edge. I'm going to clip that into place and we're going to sew that with the seam allowance given in the pattern. While I've got it folded, I'm just going to go ahead and find the center of the short edge because we'll need that for the next step. So just find those centers. I'm going to clip those and sewing this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Next, what you want to do is you want to fold these out, these seams, and you can glue them, you can double-sided tape them. I'm going to double-sided tape them. It's a good idea to get all this done first so that if you are gluing, you can sit everything off to the side to dry while you work on the next step. So folding that back. And then we want to turn this right sides out. Use my flute cleaner. Oh, okay, that's not the best. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these sides here with that center seam. I'm just going to pop some clips on here, and I am actually going to go ahead and iron this. Brymax have just brought out a new turning tool and it's rainbow. I think me breaking that flute cleaner was a sign that I need to go and buy one. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm going to go ahead and press this, and then while I'm there, I'm going to fuse my Decaville Heavy to my exterior. Next, I'm going to work on my slip pocket. So my slip pocket, right sides together. I'm going to sew around here using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and I'm going to leave a space at the top for me to be able to turn this through. You can also come in here and just trim your corners down. It'll help the pocket poke out properly. Don't trim into your stitching though. If you did happen to trim your stitches, you can just come in and do a bigger seam allowance. It'll just mean you've got a smaller pocket. Use my broken turning tool. This end's still good. This end's a little bit pokey. I won't use that end because it'll probably go straight through. I did interface this with a medium woven, and this is quilting fabric that I just get from Spotlight. I don't normally use cotton, but I'm trying to use what I have here. And I will give this an iron before I add it to my lining, but I can go ahead and top stitch it. I went ahead and ironed flat my slip pocket ready for the lining. We'll sit that to the side. Next, we're going to work on our bow tails. There's measurements given in the pattern. and we need to go ahead and mark all of that on both pieces. You don't need to do it on both, you just need to do it on one. And this is just a friction pen that I'm using, and this is heat erasing. This is going to be your stitch line. There's also measurements on the outside here, so not the inside seam, on the outside shorter parts. There's a measurement given in the pattern, and we need to mark that. What we're going to do is we're going to put these right sides together and clip these into place. These markings that we made on the outside, what we're going to do is we're going to start here and we're going to sew down here, across, following our stitch guide, up the inside of the bow tail, down, back across, and we're going to finish here. And this part here, the very top curve, is going to be left unsewn. I'm going to start here at that mark that we made, and you want to use a very small stitch length for this because you don't want to see your stitches when you turn your bow inside out. So just follow that around. That's what that marking was for. And then up here, and we're going to finish at that line. And I've back stitched twice. So for that I used a stitch length of 2.5. Next you want to go ahead, and I'm going to use pinking shears to trim down this seam. This will give us a smoother curve. If you don't have pinking shears, that's okay, you can just cut little notches. Just be very careful when you're doing this because this is not a big seam and you don't want to cut into your stitches. I always find it harder to use pinking shears on cotton than what I do if I use it on vinyl. I'm not going to trim the seam at the top here. So this is what we have so far. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1/2 inch down from the top, which is double the seam allowance that we just marked out. And I'm going to have to do that on both sides. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip 1/8 of an inch. So I'm not snipping up to this line, I'm just going to do it 1/8 of an inch all the way around our unsewn bit. You want to do that on both sides. Okay, that's one side done. Again, I'm only doing it 1/8 of an inch. Once we've done that, what we want to do is we're going to fold this top edge down to line up with that second line that I made earlier. So it's only very slight, and you want to go ahead and glue that or double-sided tape it. I'm going to try double-sided tape. So I'm just going to use 1/8 inch double-sided tape, and I'm just going to put it on the inside of that line that I just made. Now I know why I don't work with cotton very much. There are threads everywhere. Okay, so far so good. I'm just going to clip it as I go. Now you do not want those snips that you made to be more than 1/8 of an inch because you risk having cuts up here, and you don't want that because this is going to be our finished seam. If you get to the top and you find that there's a lot of bulk overlapping, you can come in and just trim out some of that bulk, but just be very careful where you're trimming, because again, this is your finished edge. Once we've done this, we're going to turn this inside out, so right sides out. I'm so excited. This is the pattern designer's very first pattern, and what a bag. Okay, that's done. Now we can turn it right sides out. Beautiful. Then these get joined together, and these are going to be our bow tails. I do like it with the Decaville, yeah. It gives it more structure. I'm just trying to get all these seams down to match. I mean, most of this is behind the bow anyway, but you still want it to look the best. That's finally done. I like it with the Decaville, yes. So what I'm going to do is, rather than just top stitch it now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some glue in here and make sure that all these seams and all these tails are in there flat. So I'm just using my stiletto just to poke those edges down to make sure that there's no threads hanging out the top. Okay, that's done. I can set that to the side and let that dry. Now we can bring our bow back. The center that I cut out earlier is matched up with the back seam that we created. I'm going to top stitch this on each long edge. We want to turn it over so that the seam is looking up, and we want to mark the center of our bow. So there is the center. What I'm going to do is put my ruler halfway, and I'm going to do 1/2 inch on either side of that center mark, and I'm going to fold my short edge in to meet the far mark that I made, and I'm going to clip that into place. Then I'm going to measure 1/2 inch in from this short edge, and then this short edge goes up to meet that line that I just made, just like so. We should have 1/2 inch overlap here, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew down the center, so 1/4 inch in the center. And we're not going to see this stitching because this gets covered by the bow band. I'm going to do it 1/4 inch away from this short edge. And I've back stitched very well. Then we have a panel that has a center seam, and now we've got to create the bow. So what I'm going to do is fold it in half, and then I'm going to fold this top edge back towards the back. Is going to create our bow. Just like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some super glue. I'm going to put some super glue on each side here, and hopefully not super glue myself, but hold these together. Okay, I really don't think that this is going to work, so I'm going to use a fabric glue and I'm going to put a lot in there and I'm going to hold that together. I'm going to come in at the back here and I'm going to glue these bits here down. So that now is glued on the front and the back. I can get my string and I can start wrapping it around my bow as tight as I can. And I can cut this off when it's dry. Tie this as tight as I can. I could have also hot glued it. I didn't think of that. That can sit off to the side and dry. And then I don't have to sit there holding it. But that is going to be our bow. Sit that to the side to dry. Got my bow band panel here. I've marked my line down the center. I'm going to add some double-sided tape. I'm going to fold the long edges in to meet the middle, and then I'm going to top stitch this. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch from each long edge. That's done. So that's going to get glued to there, and then that is going to wrap around and go into our bag. Oh, that's going to look amazing. Okay, now I'm going to come in and top stitch our tails, 1/8 of an inch. These are our completed tails. Oh look, I've got glue everywhere. Now, I think this should be dry, so I'm going to cut all my string off. Next I have to attach it here. So I'm just going to mark the center, which is right there. I'm going to attempt super glue. I don't know if it'll work. If it doesn't, I'll have to use fabric glue. But I'm gluing that on. It did work, but I'm going to come in and add more glue just under here, just to be sure. Okay, that can sit off to the side and dry. Let's work on our recessed zipper panel. This is not in the pattern. This is an addition to the pattern. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch seam allowance on each short end. Next I'm going to add some double-sided tape on the inside of each of these lines that I just made, and that is where I'm going to fold the edges down to. I'm going to remove the tape and I'm going to fold all these short edges up to that 1/2 inch mark. I'm going to clip these into place. That's finally done. Zipper tape. I'm going to cut it extra long because I can always trim it down. On my first bag that I made, I ended up getting a wonky zipper. So to avoid that happening again, I'm trying to add the recessed zipper panel, and I've also gone ahead and ironed my zipper. Now I'm just marking out 1 inch from the edge because we're going to do the fold down method, and that's a straight line. I'm going to put my zipper pull on, but I'm only going to put it on right at the end. I'm not going to move it all the way up yet. I love these zipper pulls. Okay, that's on. It's not going anywhere. Next we're going to come in and we're going to separate the top of the zipper. Where I marked that line, I'm going to pinch it and I'm going to push the zipper teeth to the right. That fold mark should line up underneath our zipper teeth. And I'm going to put a pin in that and I will stitch that together. And then that has created our fold. So again, I'm pinching at that line that I created, and with my middle finger, I'm going to push the zipper teeth to the left. That fold will go up right underneath those zipper teeth, and I can pin that in place. And then I'm going to stitch it. So I'm going to do a basting stitch, 1/8 of an inch from the edge of my zipper tape, just to tack down that fold so it doesn't move. Okay, that's one side done. Now this side. I'm going to trim off those edges there because I don't need those. And I'm going to heat seal this. Now I want a piece of my vinyl and I want it right sides up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my zipper tape right sides together. I'm going to match up the start of my zipper tape and I'm going to match it up with this fold that we created earlier. I'm going to clip this together and then I'm going to baste this in place. When I baste this on, when I get to this end here, not the one that we folded down, but the other end, where this fold is here, I'm not going to go off that because you will see that on your zipper tape. So I'm going to stop about 1/8 of an inch before I get off this edge here so that you don't see those stitches. So I'm just basting this on to begin with, 1/8 of an inch. And then before I get to that seam, I'm going to stop. So as you can see, I stopped just before the edge. Next, I'm going to get one of my lining pieces and I'm going to place that right sides down. So right sides together with the zipper in the middle. I'm going to match up these ends here and then I'm going to sew this with my full seam allowance, which for me is going to be 1/4 of an inch because I don't want to change to a zipper foot. Now, if you get to the end and for some reason your lining is a little bit short, you can take off your double-sided tape and readjust it so that it's exactly the same length as your vinyl because you want those to match. And again, when I come in and do this seam allowance, I am not going to go off the edge of this fold over that we did earlier because you will see the stitching. So I'm going to sew this 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to stop there. So 1/8 of an inch before I got off onto my zipper tape. So now what we can do is remove our clips. Now, if you are sewing on a domestic and you're worried about bulk, what you can do is you can come in here and you can trim away these bulk areas here at the beginning and the end of your zipper. And then these get folded wrong sides together. And I'm going to clip these together and then we're going to top stitch. So that is going to be 1/2 of our recessed zipper panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here. I'm going to baste this edge and then I'm going to start my top stitching. I'm going to come up and do 1/8 of an inch across and down, and that will be my top stitching. So this now is the beginning of my top stitching. So up and then across the top. And then back down this side. And that's done. That's one side. I can go ahead while I've got this here and find the center, which we will need when we attach this to our bag. I'm just going to repeat for the other side. This is going to be the opposite end now. Right sides together, matching those teeth up with that fold over. This time I'm going to sew it from this end, and I'm going to start it 1/8 of an inch before that fold over on the opposite end. You can move that out of your way. Right sides together. And I'm going to do my full seam allowance. And I'm going to stop just before I go off that fold, and then we can do the same thing. Cut down our seams if you would need to. I'm going to clip these into place and then top stitch. Basting. And then up this end, and then starting my top stitching. And then back down this side. And then that is our recessed zipper panel. Just like that. It's only a little one, isn't it? So cute. Okay, find the center of this, and we can put that to the side. Next, our lining. I want 1/2 of my lining, and you want to find the center. I'm going to match up the center of my zipper panel with the center of my lining, and I'm going to clip that together. Now it is correct, right sides up and right sides up. Normally we do right sides down, but this is correct because then we're going to add the facing piece on, and that goes up. Clip all this together, and I'm going to baste this on. My zipper is closing to the left. And then we want to add our facing. One of our facing, right sides together. You want the longer end at the top. There's some straight edges here, and then it comes down into a point. So when you flip it up, this is what it's going to look like on your bag. So the swoop will be at the top with these pointy edges. Right sides together, and we're going to sew that with the seam allowance given in the pattern. There is a curve to this, so you'll feel that your lining is puckering. That's okay because it smooths out when we do the top stitching. Just make sure that everything's all lined up. Make sure your zipper's out of the way, you're not going to sew through that. That's done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip this up, and this gets top stitched. At the moment, my lining, everything is facing up. I'm just going to flip this up and top stitch along this top seam here. I must admit, I really do love marine vinyl. Then you can come in here and you can just trim some of this excess in the corner if you're worried about bulk. Okay, I can set that piece to the side. When I added this to the first bag, I added it 1 inch from the top of the facing, but I think this time I'm just going to add it very close to the bottom because I don't want that recessed zipper to get in the way. I think that'll be fine, so I'm going to do it 1/2 inch up. Right there. And use my hemming clips to hold this in place. And I'm going to add in a woven tag. I'm So Gorgeous, Call Me Stitchcraft. I think I want to add it on the side here. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So I'm going to top stitch this on 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Now you could divide this if you wanted to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it as one big pocket, or one small pocket. And then that is one slip pocket. So we're going to turn this around, and again, right sides up to right sides up, matching the center, basting this on. We want our last facing piece, right sides together. Make sure you're matching up the right edge. Again, it will feel like it's puckering. It's okay, it smooths out. And then we can flip this up and top stitch on this band. So then this is going to be our recessed zipper panel. Trim down these excess if you want to. Next you want to join these together. Clip it all together. And you want to make sure, you want to try your hardest to match up these bands here, because this will be a focal point. And that one was off. Now you want to make sure that your zipper tape is right pushed in, otherwise you could run over it and sew it into the seam, and that wouldn't be good. I might clip it to my zipper panel, I think. Then I can feel it there and I know it's out of the way. Now, when we sew these together, very top bands get sewn at the seam allowance given in the pattern. But then when we come off these top bands here, we're going to increase our seam allowance, and that's going to ensure that our lining is not droopy. You don't want a droopy lining. Sewing with the seam allowance in the pattern until I get about 1 inch off these facing pieces, and then I'm going to increase it. So now I'm off, I'm increasing it just a little bit. So this side I'm going to start at that bigger seam allowance and then work my way in. Okay, now I'm working my way in to the seam allowance in the pattern. I think this is going to work. Oh, look. I think it's going to work. Next, what we want to do is we're going to fold open these edges, and we've got to drop our lining down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1 inch from this top edge. So what I'm doing is I'm just marking 1 inch down, and that's where I'm going to fold this top edge down to meet. And I am going to have to glue this. And you want to do that on both sides. We're going to open these seams and we're going to start gluing. So I'm going to place glue just before that 1 inch mark. And that is where I'm going to fold my top down to and start clipping into place. While I'm here, I'm going to fold out. I'm going to double-sided tape these back. I think that'll be helpful in our next step. I'm going to push these back. Because next we're going to sew in our connectors. Next we want to turn this right sides out. We're going to turn it like this, so it looks like a pair of shorts. You want to get your connector. I'm going to add some double-sided tape to this side of my connector, but I do not want it to go on that overlap. And then this gets placed over that seam. So we're going to match up center of this with the center of that seam, and we're going to stick it down just like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch. So we're going to go up to where we stopped our top stitching before, and we're going to do that on both sides. So you're going to have to shove all of this stuff out of your way. I want to make sure that I'm not going through anything I shouldn't be. Do you know what? I think for this it's going to be easier to take my zipper pull off. I can put that back on later. But I do want to go and heat seal these ends. Okay, they're heat sealed, they're out of the way. I'm going to clip it to this zipper panel on both sides so I don't sew through it. You want to get everything out of your way. So I think I'm going to start and sew it from the bottom up. Yeah, that's what I'll do. And you want to move everything out of your way as you're sewing this on. Now I'm going to hold that in place. And you want to come up and match up your top stitching. But I think what I want to do is, I think I want to go up one stitch, which is getting both all my top stitching and that connector, maybe one more, and then I'm going to go across. This is not how it is in the pattern, but this is how I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to match it up with the other side and then come back down. That's going to work best for me, I think. Make sure everything's out of the way. I do not want to tear up this vinyl. And then when I get to the bottom, I'm just going to sew straight across the bottom to secure that further. And then that's done. And I don't mind that stitching in the middle. I really don't. Oh, love it. So then this is what we have. And you could actually, if you wanted to, you could actually add a second row there. But you really do want this to be able to come out of the way when it comes time to do the drop-in lining, the exterior, because that's where I had trouble on my original bag. I added a Chicago screw and I found it really hard to top stitch. So let's do the other side. I'm going to add double-sided tape to hold this in place. And again, match it up from the bottom. I'm just going to adjust this as I go. Make sure everything's out of the way. I mean, it is a bit awkward, but it's fine. Totally doable. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Oh, look at that. That is gorgeous. Now we can turn it inside out again and finish our lining. We're going to sew it with the seam allowance given in the pattern on the bottom and the sides. We do not increase this part. I just want to make sure everything's out of the way, and I'm not going to sew through anything I shouldn't be. That's the bottom done. And then we've just got to box the corners and our lining is done. Boxing the bottom. I'm going to fold these, butterfly out these, line everything up, and sewing that the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now I'm going to come in and do a second row right next to the first one, especially on that connector, just to further secure that, because we're sewing that connector into that seam. We do not trim seam allowances. We're going to repeat for this side. There's one done, and then I am going to come in and do that second row. Just like so. Again, do not trim down anything. And then that is our lining. So cute. Okay, let's do the exterior. Before I sew this together, I'm going to go ahead and mark 1 inch down. Do that on both sides. It's just got to be a rough guide. I'm out of coffee, this is not good. Okay, pick which side you want to be your front. Now on the pattern, there are some markings that you need to make, and this is going to be slits that we make for our bow. Now, you do not want to use a hole punch for this. You only want to do slits in the center of these boxes. You want to get a craft knife, and what we're going to do is between these rectangles, we're going to do a slit. And this is where our bow center is going to go, or our bow panel. They were not at all straight, but that's okay. So when our bow is on our bag, it's going to go through here, just like so. It's going to pull through like this. Our bow is going to be here, and it's going to get wrapped around just like this. Oh, this is going to look amazing. Love it. Okay, let's get this exterior done. Right sides together, and we're going to sew it with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And we're going to box the corners, just like we did on the lining. Butterfly these out, match up your seams. I'm just going to trim these down. I'm just butterflying open these seams and matching these. Sew that with the seam allowance given in the pattern. I am going to do a second row of stitching on the bottom because this is such a thick vinyl. Oh, I didn't put a nameplate on. Oh, that's okay. Don't trim down your seam allowance. We're going to insert our bow. I'm going to turn this right sides out. You want to put your bow band through the top or the bottom. Probably go through the bottom. You want it to be a snug fit. Okay, put your bow in the middle and then put the top band through that slit. Then when you've got it through both, you want to pull it tight. Now, you want to play around with your bow and make sure that it's centered. Once you're happy that it's centered, what you're going to do is on the inside here, you're going to flatten these out and you're going to pull them as tight as you can, and you want to add super glue. So you want to add super glue just here, and you want to super glue this down. Pull it as tight as you can, and then you want to do the bottom one. Sorry, there's no easy way to show you. Now that that's stuck, I'm going to come in and add masking tape to the back of that just to further secure it. That is my bow on. What we're going to do now is we're going to glue the top down just as we did with our lining. So we're going to open this up and we're going to fold it down to that line and we're going to glue it. So I'm just folding my seam down to meet that 1 inch line that we made earlier. I just want to try and avoid having glue in my top seam because that's going to potentially be seen. That's done. Turn it inside out. What we need to do, this is one of the last steps, is we're going to sit our bag just like this. So bottom to bottom. And we're going to match up these seams here and we're going to sew them together. So make sure that both pieces of your bag, so your exterior and your lining, are wrong sides out. Match up these seams on both corners and we're going to sew these together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're just sticking these together. So then when your bag's in use and you're using your handle, it's not going to pull your lining up out of your bag because we do not want that. And then once we've done this, we can turn it right sides out and then do our final gluing together, leave it overnight and then top stitch, and then it'll be done. So all I'm going to do is sew these together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're not going to be able to see, but that's what I'm doing. Now, depending on the materials used, it will be thick. So there's one side done. And again, we don't need to trim the seams. Now we get to turn it right sides out. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. Don't pull on your bow though. I'm just trying to grab a corner and gently pull it through. Tell you, the materials that I choose for a bag, I'm a glutton for punishment, but far out it's worth it. Pushing out that corner. Far out, I'm getting the work out. Now that's done, we can push out our lining into the corners. I'm going to push my handle in the bag, and then I'm going to start matching up seams. These seams here together, and I'm going to clip them before I glue anything because I want to make sure that everything fits. Okay, so that's that side. Oh, I need a coffee. Center points right there. And then the back right there. Oh my goodness, I love this bag. Look. Oh. I've got to put this zipper pull on and see if it worked. Moment of truth. Oh, look. It worked. No wavy zippers. Okay. I love it. This bag is going to Belinda because she is amazing and she helped me with the zipper. Hope she likes blue. I have to make a pink one. Look at that bow. I'm not even finished it, but look. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm first going to sew this end so I don't lose my zipper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue both of these layers together. I'm going to leave it overnight to set because it's 1:30 a.m. here and I need to get to sleep. And I do need to turn this inside out again to top stitch. If I had a cylinder arm, it would be a lot easier, but I don't. So let's do the final glue. All right, I'm going to go ahead and glue this and then I'll be back tomorrow to do the final top stitch. Okay, let's turn this inside out for the final time. Poke those corners out. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. Here's our bow. Look at this bow. I love this bag. Oh wow. This bow is amazing. Wow. I love it. Love it. I'm so happy with this bag. So here's our inside. Fits absolutely amazing. Here's our divided pocket on the back. This just fits amazing. There's our connectors that go down into our lining. These sit a lot lower in the bag than what my very first lot did, and I think I like this. And it's only because I misread the pattern when I was making it and thought these needed to be up out of the bag, and that's why they're higher on my first bag, but this is how they're meant to be. Let's check out this zipper panel. Oh, I don't even care I'm making stupid noises. I'm so excited. Oh, wow. Wow, wow. I love this bag. Look at that. I'll trim the end of this. It doesn't need to be that long. But then that can slide down in the bag. All I'm going to say is thank you, Belinda. You know, you're amazing. for helping me or telling me how it would work, what measurements to do. You are amazing. And this bag I'm going to gift to you. Then that's the bottom. I'm in love with this bag. Now I've done this recessed zipper panel, I think I'm going to have to order templates. Love it. I'm going to make one for me in black and pink with a big pink bow. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. There's our sides. I mean, it's going to have to sit overnight and relax. I mean, it's been through a lot. It's had a lot of turns. It's going to need therapy, but we can get through this. And wow. I'm so excited that I got to test this bag. It is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope Belinda likes her new bag, and I'll catch you all on the next video. Have an amazing day. Bye.